Thank you, Major General Nichols. And our next speaker is the man he just talked about, a member of the greatest generation to whom we pay tribute today. He was born in Detroit, Texas in 1913 and graduated, as Major General said, from the U.S. Military Academy in 1937, serving in North Africa in the war under General Patton, and in the U.S. Army and the U.S. Army Air Corps, later in the service known today as the United States Air Force. And after the war, he got his MBA from Harvard, but he continued serving in the military for 24 years in many positions, including commander of the 705th Missile Wing, and as a respected member of the nation's Weapons Systems Evaluation Group, reporting directly to the Secretary of Defense. He retired from the military in 1961, and he moved home to Texas with his wife, Ray, to whom he was introduced by General Westmoreland 76 years ago. He is a longtime resident of Houston, and he celebrated his 100th birthday this summer. He remains a staunch patriot, a 100-year-old staunch patriot and an active member of the West Point Alumni Association and other civic groups. Would you please welcome an American hero and American treasure, retired Colonel George McDowell.
Thank you.
Pleasure to see you.
Nice to see you. Yeah. I am honored to be here on this stage with these great speakers. And now that I'm over 100, I'm happy to be here at all. How many of you can remember the details of your life 70 years ago? Well, since this is Veterans Day, I'd like to honor one of our fallen, because one of my most enduring military members is my association with General Patton. In October of 42, I was ordered to Washington, D.C. and selected for the nucleus of a air support section in the Western Task Force going to French Morocco. There were about a few of us that were staying then at the Army-Navy Club in Washington, and we didn't know where French Morocco was. So we went to the library in the Army-Navy Club to look it up. We were told that we would be the headquarters for a task force going across Africa from French Morocco to Algiers. And this was before the days when General Patton became famous. He was designated as the commander of this task force. There were about 100 of us working in the end of the old munitions building in Washington, planning this invasion. And this was to be the biggest invasion that the U.S. has ever planned up to that time. After we'd been there for a few days, General Patton got in where he would walk around asking questions of each people in the room there at their desk. And I remember hearing a scratchy voice on the floor, turned around and looked, and there was General Patton sitting there getting ready to ask me questions. Me being a 29-year-old lieutenant colonel, just 4 years out of West Point. And I was responsible for planning the shiploads and the munitions that were to be going on the assault and the support convoys. He sat there and listened carefully for about 7 or 8 minutes, didn't say a word, finally got up and said, "Just make damn sure we got enough." General Patton could not ever make any kind of a statement without some cuss words in it. And I commend in the movie Patton, they had a terrible job of cleaning up the language. Another afternoon that we were there planning, a staff meeting was called for 4 o'clock. Everybody was to attend, line the walls, sit on the desk, and so forth. Joe Patton came out of his side room office and said that he could not impress on all of us the importance of the secrecy of the operation and what we were planning. He says, if those German submarine commanders get word of this, he says, I want you to know you're sending 70,000 men to their death if it's by a slip of your tongue. He starts back into his office, but turns around and says, and furthermore, 35,000 of them are going to hell. Another time that I was in Casablanca headquarters there after we got in, and I was going on in my Jeep down to Marrakesh, about 100 miles away, across the Bundocks there, and I looked in my mirror and I saw a great big cloud of dust behind me. So I thought I'd better slow down and figure out who that was. And as I slowed down, came right beside me a command car with 2 stars on the bumper. And I knew that was John Patton. So I slowed down as he stopped ahead of me. And he got out and he says, McDowell, where is your helmet? I said, it's on the floor of my Jeep, sir. He says, you're fined $10 for not wearing that helmet. I pulled out the script, $10, gave it to him. He put it in his billfold, walked toward his command car, and turned around and just laughed like everything. He says, now, damn it, put that helmet on. In February, General Patton was ordered to Tunisia, and he wound up the battle, the activities going on there in Tunisia, and the Germans surrendered, and then he conducted the Sicilian operations before he went on up to England to command the Corps and going across the North invasion. I stayed in Africa with General Cannon, who was my immediate boss on the staff there. General Cannon suddenly got promoted 3 stars and was made commander of the RAF as well as the American forces, air forces in Italy. And I was on his staff. John Patton and John Cannon were great combat commanders. They were unflappable, fearless, and they expected others that were under them to do the same thing. Now, since this is Veterans Day, I want to express a message of thanks to all veterans of this era. I hope that those of you who haven't served will make every effort to take care of our veterans as they return. Because this is the national commitment we've made, we've got to be sure that we keep it. And to the younger military members here today currently serving, I offer these words. I was 5 years old when World War I ended and was making mud pies out on Chicken House when all the whistles in town went off. This was a war to end war. And it was over and everybody was celebrating. But little did we know that it was not the end of all wars. And we know that now that we've had World War II and we've had other wars since then. We're still at war. And to those of you that are in the military and risking your lives today, I offer this. John Patton used to always say, as he was leaving meetings and so forth, says, keep moving. And he meant it physically and mentally. Because if you keep moving forward, you will help America continue to move forward also. Thank you all very much, and God bless America.